Today's topic is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more personal than what I'm used to sharing with you guys. But I feel it necessary for a few different reasons. On this channel, we always encourage you guys to be brave, to do what makes you extremely uncomfortable. And I think in light of what's been going on around the world and people losing so many loved ones, I have people very close to me who are now losing their loved ones. I figured I would take the opportunity to look into my own journey with grief. And I had the pleasure of going on Dr. K's channel to talk with him. And so, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. It's a little bit of a longer video, but it gets pretty personal. So I just ask that you guys be patient and also that you guys try to be respectful. I know it's kind of hard to do that when you post online content, but it is something that would mean a lot to me. So, yeah. Is the loss of, you know how they often say, like, time heals all wounds? Mm-hmm. I question whether or not that's true for all things. And when is it not true?
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's my question.
Yeah. So I think you have an answer that you suspect already. So what's your answer?
I guess it depends on how you handle the wound, I suppose.
Well said. And I'd say the same thing. So I think, Abbott, sometimes people come on here with questions and they expect me to give them answers.
I think it's maybe not questions I have so much as it is, like, I feel like sometimes I'm too close to the problem. And as a result, like, when you put your hand right in front of your face, it's blurry.
Yep.
I feel like I can't find a way to get enough distance to get some decent perspective. So I think it's just finding a space where I'm comfortable enough to allow somebody else to be my eyes to see the problem where I can't.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what happened in your case and maybe who you lost?
Yeah. So I lost my father when I was 21. So that's about 9 years, almost 10 years now. And I suppose the absence that was felt kind of never stopped being felt. And I would have interactions with people, and I realized it was always going to be a tender spot for me, which is why it's traditionally a topic I avoid altogether, even with people that are very close to me. And I think just looking at that and recognizing that it's so tender after so long, I just kind of always had issues with it. Well, I accept that it's gone, or that he's gone, but even though I accept it, doesn't make it any.
And can you help me understand, once again, welcome to not answer anything, why you moved to Ethiopia at the age of 6 or 7?
Oh, just financials. I think my mom was struggling a little bit with money, and so for her it was just easier to kind of get her money together. And then, instead of renting and being struggling with the job, she was able to buy a house and then bring us back and have a legitimate home.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So, and then did you guys have a relationship? So it sounds like between 3 and 6 or 7, or for a period of 3 years, you didn't really see your dad much?
No.
And
no, I didn't see him at all.
And what happened when you moved back to Ethiopia?
Well, I mean, it was kind of weird. You don't see someone and they're like, that's your father, but you don't really have any idea what they're like. And so you're kind of apprehensive at first, but as a child, you go where you're told.
And so it sounds like if you wanted something from him or you needed something from him, you guys would sort of interact. But I'm not getting a sense of a lot of free flowing, natural father-son sort of interactions.
No, I wouldn't say that was there. But there were times where I may have needed him to help me with something, and he would show up. So I think that would probably be the closest thing. But other than that, he just provided and made himself available when I needed it. I think I just never grabbed the olive branch, if you will.
How do you feel about that?
Good question. I think looking back now, I probably don't feel that great about it, just knowing. Yeah, I think just knowing you don't get that opportunity back, that part is unfortunate. But I think I forgive myself only because I understand that I was a child and I made the decisions I did then. But yeah, just because you accept or you forgive yourself doesn't make it suck any less, right? So, yeah.
Sure.
Hmm.
And what do you forgive yourself for?
What I perceive to be I guess I imagine it must have been hard for him, right? To want to be present in your child's life and your child constantly rejects you in a roundabout way. And I imagine that must be difficult. Yeah.
Okay. So you say, I mean, that's a big pile of self-forgiveness. Right. So, I mean, it's quite amazing if you've really forgiven yourself for constantly rejecting your dad
Yeah.
and causing him a lot of hurt.
It begs the question, did I really forgive myself? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
So let me ask you, what's painful when you think or talk about your dad?
Okay. Well, when I was 19, I ended up joining the military. And it was at the height of like when people were going to Afghanistan and whatnot. So it was quite a lot of that going on. And, I come from a Muslim family. And so obviously when I told my mom I was joining, she was quite disappointed and angry. And I think after that we hadn't spoken on almost 2 years. But I remember going through basic training. And even though basic training is not the most difficult thing, it is a stressful thing. It was very stressful for me, mostly because of the fact that I was not used to this kind of environment where there was discipline and people looking over your shoulders and all these orders that you have to constantly file and all these different tasks that I was just not competent at. I struggled quite a lot, to be honest with you. I righted the wrongs, and got it going eventually, probably by like my second month into basic, and then I was like really steady. But it was very difficult at first. And I remember when you're in basic, you're kind of locked in a space with 60 other people who are your platoon mates, and you go through these rigorous training for that period. And I think what made it extra hard for me was during that period, I had nobody I could talk to when the day was stressful, right? Like people go to the payphones to talk, and I just didn't have any kind of support system in that regards, or people that could be like, hey man, just keep pushing. And I managed to get through basic, and I was in the middle of my initial service when the call about my father came in. And I remember going to the hospital, having not seen the man in many, many years. And he was kind of frail looking. And yeah, I remember seeing him. And the first thing that he told me, again, this is after I hadn't spoken to family members in many years. The first thing he told me was that when he heard I had joined, just give me a second. All right. Yeah, the first thing he told me is that he was proud, and I think when I heard that, it was hard because I immediately had to I I had to leave the room just to find myself like a corner in the hospital. I just remember crying a lot, and I'd called my best friend at the time, and he'd never heard me like that. And I didn't know what had overcome me at the time. But I think looking back now, I realized that I think at the time I'd realized that despite never realizing it, I'd always wanted to hear that. It's not even about the military. I think I always wanted to have that. And yeah. I think that was the hard part. Yeah, it just hit me. I guess it was like a whole childhood of not having that, right? So I think that's what's hard about it. So yeah, that was tough for me.
You know, it's kind of interesting, right? How tough it can be to get exactly what you need. Generally speaking, when I ask people, you know, if you get exactly what you need, would you consider that to be tough? Generally speaking, people wouldn't say yes.
I think it's because a lot of times people don't even realize what it is that they need.
Yeah.
I think I've just been functional and moving through life that way. And I think that moment kind of made me realize the absence, and it kind of shone a light on, I think, maybe just things that I didn't know I yearned for, you know, or things I convinced myself I didn't want. And yeah.
So, Abba,
yeah.
I should ask you more questions, but I'm going to give you an answer at this point. I think the reason that you have trouble getting over the loss of your dad is because you lost him a long time before he passed away. Right? And he lost you a long time before he passed away. And so if all you're grieving is his death, you're missing out on a big part of what you need to mourn.
Another thing that's maybe this ties in. I think over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had like a lot of success, and it's been very humbling to be able to connect with so many people, whether it be through stand-up or through this YouTube stuff. And one of the many joys that I have now is to be able to like take care of the people around me. You know, there's something that's, for me, extremely fulfilling about that aspect of my life. But oftentimes people ask me if I'm proud. And I always think back to the moments, and I feel like the reason why I often feel like I'm not proud, because I think the one person that I wanted to showcase to that I could do it isn't around. You know, I felt like I was supposed to support my mother and then kind of prove to my dad that I could do it. And I think I lost that opportunity in a way. So I think that's a bit of the hole that I feel.
Sure.
And the mourning that I think doesn't stop. I think it's just, you're right about having not been able to mourn everything else before that. Yeah, I think that's a good observation.
So, Abba, is your dad proud of you?
I think I think he was proud of me. I guess I just wanted to show more, you know. You know, despite everything, my parents gave up a lot for us, and you know, there's a huge part of me that wants to be able to repay that. Partially for them, but I think also partially for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Show them that they don't have to worry.
So this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I take issue with many of the words that you choose. So you say he was proud of you. That's not the question I asked. I asked, is he proud of you?
I mean, I think I used the word was just because, man is dead.
Yep.
I know, and I'm sure for a lot of people, there's like the idea of afterlife or people live on through you. I personally don't subscribe to stuff like that. I mean, maybe in a way, maybe their lessons and their influence, lives on through you. But I think at the end of the day, I think there's very few things like the material presence. For me personally,
I'd agree. So I'd say even if I'm not talking about the afterlife. So I think what we need to do is really understand what he was saying to you that day that he saw you in the hospital. Like, what do you think he was proud of?
What I become? Who I was, standing before him.
So that's why I ask in the present tense, because I don't think he was proud of you just in that moment. He was proud of what you had become, and he was proud of what he knew you would be. Right? I think he's proud of you. I mean, even if he's dead, I'm not talking about an afterlife or a soul or anything like that, although those thoughts and feelings can certainly be comforting, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is I think he saw the person, the person that you are today was what he got a glimpse of like 9 years ago. Right? And like, I don't know, do you have kids?
No.
Well, no. It's something that honestly you may better understand if you choose to, or lucky or unlucky to have kids one day. Maybe you'll understand that, like, you know what they're going to be. Right? And in that moment, there's a part of me that says that, like, he wasn't talking about just that moment. He was talking about what had come before that moment and what was going to come after that moment.
Why do you think it is that I'm unable to believe that? I don't know why. Am I rejecting it? I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a good question. It's the right question. Let me just think about whether I want to ask you. What do you reject about it?
You say parents know what their kids are going to become. I just never felt like anybody knew I was going to do any of this. And I'm not here to be like, oh, wow, look at everything. But I can honestly say I don't think I've ever had anyone believe in me in that way.
Well, bro.
Yeah.
I think that
I know my dad showed it in that moment, but I think prior to that I just had never seen it. And so maybe
I think that's your answer. Right? So, like, let me put some context around it. So I think the reason you can't believe it is because, just the tiniest amount did so much for you, and you just weren't used to that. You couldn't understand what that meant in that moment. Even now, you're struggling to understand it. Why is it hard for you to accept it? Because it's new. It's like the first time you eat, like, a chili, right? It's like it takes some time to get used to things that are new to you. And what I'm hearing from you is that you were starved. Like, seriously, bro, you got to mourn way more than his death. And we'll get to other reasons. I mean, if you want really what's going on, I'll just, like, tell you, okay? Like, this is a shot in the dark. But, I think the reason that you have trouble accepting it is because, like, if you accept it, it changes a lot for you. So, like, when you say things like, I went to him only when I needed him, I shut him down, I say you were put in the middle, and then you respond with, because, like, a kid, it's funny because you even sort of notice this. I said, like, so it sounds like you got caught in between your parents, and then your answer is, I put myself there. Right? And then you even catch yourself, and then you say afterward, well, I guess you can't really put yourself there as a kid. So, like, how do you understand that? Like, why would you say those statements back to back? And what I'm hearing from you is a lot of responsibility for a lot of these situations. I've forgiven myself for continuously rejecting my dad. for not taking the olive branch. And what I hear in you, Abba, is like a war between what you understand to be true and what you feel. Which is that you can't really blame a kid, but I think you blame yourself. And I think when you talk about shame, like, why do people feel shame? Like, where does shame come from? I think on some level, like, you also feel guilt, I guess. And I think the real problem is that, like, you've gotten very, very used to that feeling. You've sort of like built this version of yourself that's like positive in spite of that, but it's still a big part of who you are. And I think if you accept that your dad was proud of you, then like it's hard to blame yourself, which feels weird and uncomfortable. And there I fully admit I may lose you. But like there's something weird going on where I think like if you accept that your dad is proud of you, you have to let go of some of that pain. And I don't think you want to. I think you like blaming yourself for rejecting your dad. Why on earth aren't you screaming to the heavens that this is unfair and this shouldn't happen like this? That like my dad should have been proud of me for years and I should have had a relationship with him. And just when things were turning around, he was taken away from me.
I think for a few reasons. I think one, holding on to resentment and anger oftentimes for me is just not led to good places. Violence in particular. I was a violent teenager, super violent.
Okay.
I think if it wasn't for the military, I probably would have landed myself in way more trouble. I think that's one reason why I don't want to hold on to it. Two, I don't even know if forgiveness is possible if you don't fully go through the path that you mentioned, but I think I can't have any form of forgiveness if I hold on to that. And three, I can't change what has happened in the past. And so if I cannot change it, and it only leads to me potentially engaging in destructive behavior and the inability to forgive those people around me, it stands to reason that I don't want to hold on to that idea of like I reject and I'm angry because I am. To be fair, I probably if I wanted to go back there and really think back on it, I could probably resurface those experiences and find reasons to be angry and justified reasons. But I ask, what purpose does it serve if I can't get forgiveness and I can't get like a real sense of catharsis, at least not one that I can imagine?
Yeah. So this is okay. Now I'm more confident. Because here's the thing, right? Like, so like, here's what I'm hearing, Abba, is you're not letting yourself feel what you feel because it serves no point in your head. And you wonder why you're stuck.
I think if I do the cost analysis benefit, I feel like there's more downsides than I could see potential upsides. I think I can't see
I completely agree with your cost analysis.
Okay.
And it's not how feelings work.
Fair.
If the reason that you can't stop mourning is because you're doing a cost analysis of the benefits and costs of mourning and you choose not to do it, then no fucking wonder you're stuck.
So right. my question is, how do you mourn?
So like, you familiar with the Kubler-Ross grief stages? This is like psychology 101.
Yeah. Something about like denial and then...
Denial and anger at the top.
Yeah.
And what you did, my dude, is skip right past those to like acceptance. And so like, that's why you're stuck, bro. Right? You're afraid of your anger. But it's a part of you. It's a part of who you are. Like, there's a big difference between not telling yourself that shit is unfair and saying, like, okay, like, I should be grateful. I should be grateful that on his deathbed, my dad told me once in my life that he's proud of me. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, I appreciate that as someone who tries to, get people to engender gratitude and feel like so much like people are like, burnt out. They're resentful about life. I'm with you. I don't think it's a good idea to hold on to resentment, but I think you got to pick it up from time to time so that you can put it where it belongs. Like, I mean, if you're the Dalai Lama, sure. Like, being grateful that your dad was I'm not saying you shouldn't be grateful for that moment. I'm not saying it isn't a powerful moment. I'm not saying it isn't a transformative moment. But I think you're allowed to be angry, and you're afraid of what's going to happen if you let yourself be angry. And that's exactly why you can't let the anger go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a part of you, yeah.
I wouldn't know how to channel it.
Yep.
Like, how do you channel that emotion in a constructive way? Like if you're a football player and you're aggressive and you got some aggression, anger, like maybe you channel it on the field, right? Like, how would I channel those emotions into, I guess, something good?
Yeah. So
I think that's what I want.
that's the problem, is you don't channel it into something good.
Okay.
You don't channel it, right? You sit with it.
Okay.
Like, Abba, what you need to say to yourself is, like, first of all, like, I think you got to get angry with yourself, because I think you are angry at yourself. I think you blame yourself on some level, like, understandably so. Mm-hmm. So I think you're halfway there. Like, you're kind of saying, like, I was a kid, right? Mm-hmm. Like, my mom, like, there are all kinds of irrational thoughts, and this is the problem, is you're a thoughtful guy. Mm-hmm. It's your fucking problem. Mm-hmm. So, like, let me just toss out a random chain of thinking to you, okay?
Okay.
So, like, if you were resentful towards your dad, like, you don't blame yourself because you were a kid, right? And what do kids know?
Right.
And so he extended the olive branch, and the only time you ever, like, gave him the time of day is when you needed something from him. Like, holy shit, like, that's a bad way to interact with another human being.
Yeah.
And you're a good dude, you're a thoughtful dude, so you're like, you've learned to forgive yourself for that. But then, like, there are other thoughts under there. Like, why was I this way towards my dad? Why was I robbed of this opportunity? Because of my mom. Mm-hmm. Because she taught me this stuff, because she brainwashed me. And if it weren't for my mom, if my mom was a different person, maybe I would have had a different relationship with my dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that that's correct, but what I'm saying is that, like, it feels healthy to me to think those thoughts and let yourself think those thoughts. Mm-hmm. To blame yourself, to blame your mom, to blame your dad, to blame a God that you don't even believe in, blame everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. And then accept. Mm-hmm. And then forgive. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what you need to do. Like, you're missing, like, this piece of, like, my God, man, you need to climb on top of a mountain and you need to scream about how unlucky you are, and then also recognize that you're blessed. Mm-hmm. Because this is what life is, man. Life is not either or. Right? Like, if you look at the yin yang, there's a tiny black dot in the whites part, and there's a tiny white dot in the black part. Mm-hmm. And so, like, should you be grateful? Like, was your dad proud of you? Like, absolutely. Mm. Should you be fucking angry that you guys were just starting to build something and that you got robbed, dude? Mm. And that's not fair. Mm. And you shouldn't, like, I respect you for accepting it, but there's a part of me that says, holy fuck, you shouldn't have to accept it. Hmm. No one deserves a life where they have to accept what you have accepted.
Yeah, I think it's probably like a survival tool that probably outlived its use. Because I think in short periods and in times of, like, difficulty, I think it's important to have those. But I think now, and especially where I'm at, and I have time to spend with my thoughts and my ideas, that's like, oh, I don't need that, but I still operate underneath that mode. And
that's,
I think, yeah.
I mean, you keep on going on that track, and we'll be switching seats real soon. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because, Abba, you're spot on. That, like, that was adaptive, and now it's maladaptive. Mm. Mm. Right? Which is exactly what you just explained. You've understood that. Huh?
Yeah, it just reminds me of, like, those stories about, like, those old war robots who were, like, commissioned for one function and the war ends and, like, they have to find meaning. Right? It made me think of that.
Yeah, that's exactly where you are. I think it's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Questions?
I'm just grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. You created a great space for people to be brave and to you know, showcase that in front of other folks. And I think, I mean, I'm sure you're told how conducive and how wonderful it is, but for me, it's even just having like witnessed some other streams, I thought it was wonderful. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. So I have a weird response to that. Let me think about how to say this. So I appreciate your appreciation, but I do not accept your gratitude. Because what you need to really understand, Abba, is that you were owed this. This is what you were entitled to. This is a part of the everything that you deserve. So people come to me and they say, oh, thank you for doing all this. You guys don't understand. I'm doing nothing for you that deserves gratitude. Like, not towards me. Like, this is part of what you're owed, bro. You draw short straws in life, and you get some long straws in life. I'm one of the long straws. I want you to, as best as you can, accept that this is just a part of what you're given. And you can be grateful for that in a general sense. But don't thank me.
I understand the point about the long straws, but I also have to respect the fact that there's a manifestation of choice to be that long straw. You know, it's not like in your absence, somebody else may have filled the void. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but it's not guaranteed. And so I think there has to be some measure of gratitude for the idea that you chose to be in that position to be able to help folks. Was I owed this? I'll agree. But
well played, sir. That is the one piece of gratitude I'm willing to accept.
Okay. Yeah. I agree that spaces like this should be here. I 100% agree with that, and I think everyone should be owed that. But I think there should be some idea of like, I commend you for being the person who chooses to be that long straw for people.
Yeah, that I can accept. That's what I have to accept.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad.
Despite my desire not to. You found the one chink in my armor, sir. I commend you.
All right, I'm flattered. I'm gonna take that to my Discord and be like, I got him, guys.
Yeah,
so,
you got me.
Gonna be a good one.
Got me in more ways than one, Appa.
All